Hey y'all, we are going to read about in New England, the states Vermont and Massachusetts. This is Unit 2. So this is Vermont, and here's a picture of Vermont here, and you guys should have that in your book. Derby Line, Hannah will know what that is. We go to a restaurant called Derby Line, right? We eat at this little restaurant right up here, which is on the Canadian border. Imagine a pile of pancakes with maple syrup running down the sides. Yum! Maple syrups come from maple trees. Vermont is full of maple trees. To make the syrup, sugar makers drill little holes called taps into the trunks of maple trees. The sap drips out of the taps and collects in buckets. Some sugar makers collect from as many as 60,000 taps. After they collect it, sugar makers boil the sap to make syrup. Vermont might be a small state, but it produces more maple syrup than any other state. Find Vermont on the map at the beginning of this book. Okay, so it asks you to come back over here, and you can see Vermont right here. Okay. In 1919, dairy farmers in Cabot, Vermont needed a way to use their extra milk. 94 farmers joined together and started a business. They used the extra milk from their cows to make butter. They sold the butter throughout New England. In 1930, the company began making cheese as well. Today, around 800 dairy farm families from all over the Northeast work together to supply the milk for Cabot Creamery. In addition to cheese, the creamery in Cabot makes Greek-style yogurt, cottage cheese, and sour cream. Cabot cheese is so good. Cabot won the World's Best Cheddar Award at the 2006 World Champion Cheese Contest. The capital of Vermont is Montpelier. Okay, so that's one of your green words, so find that on your map, okay? Montpelier is our country's smallest state capital. Less than 8,000 people live in the city. Compare that to Indiana's capital with 800,000 or Arizona's with 1,600,000. In 1805, the government of Vermont decided that Montpelier would be the state capital if the citizens of Montpelier would build the state house. The people wanted to help, but not everyone had money to donate. Some donated building materials instead. Some donated vegetables, grain, butter, and cheese. These items could be sold to buy wood, glass, and nails. People donated their time and carpentry skills. Residents agreed for the town to raise taxes to cover the rest of the cost of the building. Montpelier finished the first state house in 1808. In 1836, the government moved into a new, larger state house. A fire broke out in that state house on a January night in 1857. The people of Montpelier rushed to throw chunks of frozen snow into the burning building, but sadly they could not put out the fire and it destroyed the state house. While they waited for a new state house, Vermont's government met in a country courthouse in a local church building. Workers completed a third state house 2 years later. The government of Vermont has used their third state house ever since. Today's senators sit in the same chairs and at the same desks the senators used in 1857. Danby Quarry. Vermont is home to the largest underground marble quarry in the world. Workers have been cutting marble out of the Danbury Quarry under Dorset Mountain, so look that one up, since 1903. Workers also operate an underground factory at the quarry. There they prepare slabs of marble for people to use in building projects around the world. Lake Champlain lies between Vermont and New York. Okay, so on the map over here, you see Vermont, and then you see New York. Okay, so they're saying Lake Champlain would be on this border. The lake has abundant fish, attracting fishermen from far and wide. The area around the lake fascinates geologists, who are scientists who study the earth. They come to the lake to study the fossilized coral reef there. Coral reefs form in the ocean, so apparently Vermont was once under the ocean. In 1848, railroad workers were laying a track south of Lake Champlain. As they worked along, they dug up part of a fossilized mammoth. The next year, while working on the same railroad, workers discovered the fossilized bones of a beluga whale. It is obvious that long ago, Vermont was a very different place from what it is now. And over here, you can see Lake Champlain on the border right here. So New York would be over here. Haskell Free Library and Opera House. Martha Stewart Haskell was Canadian. She married a man from Vermont. In 1901, after her husband's death, Mrs. Haskell decided to build a center for learning and culture in his honor. She and her son built Haskell Free Public Library and Opera House. They had the building constructed on the border between Vermont and Quebec, Canada. The front door of the building is in Derby Line, Vermont, and the library books are in Rock Island, Quebec. The opera stage is in Canada, but most of the audience sits in the U.S. Usually when someone is in Canada wants to enter the United States, they have to go through an official port of entry. If a Canadian wants to visit the Haskell building, however, they are allowed to simply cross over the border on the sidewalk to get to the front door. The building continues to be a center for learning and culture, just as its founder hoped. So the mind of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. Okay, so it wants you to illustrate the geographic term for Vermont in the Atlas workbook on page 8. So turn in your workbook to page 8. If you're using the lesson view, we need to answer the questions for Vermont on page 2. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, and here are the questions. Well, okay. What maple product does Vermont produce more than any other state? Surely you all remember that that's maple syrup. Cabot Creamery won an award for the world's best blank cheese. Do you remember what that was? Cheddar. Best cheddar cheese. When a fire broke out in the Second State House in Montpelier in 1857, what did people throw into the fire to try to put it out? Do you guys remember? Frozen snow. Workers cut blank out of the Danby Quarry. Okay, here it is. There's the answer. And what is one type of fossil people have found in Vermont? Well, you could discuss the mammoths, or you could discuss the beluga whale. Either one, okay? So I want you to read chapter 5 in Rabbit Hill, and I'm also going to be posting, chapter 4, which is attached to this assignment, and I'm also going to be posting chapter 5 very soon. I just haven't done it yet. So get those things done. And the other thing is I'm going to let you, we'll do lesson 6 tomorrow, and we'll do Rabbit Hill with that one, chapter 5. But for today, do this, listen to chapter 4.